From Nutrien Ag Solutions, I'm Senior Meteorologist Andrew Pritchard with your Canadian Prairie weather story for Monday, March 20th, 2023. I'll tell you right off the bat, it's going to be another pretty quiet week across the prairie. Some opportunities for some flurries, but it's going to be relatively disappointing overall as far as total moisture goes. Start off talking about temperatures. A little bit on the cold side here, anywhere from -5 to -11 or 12 across much of the prairie. A little bit colder as you make your way into southern Manitoba. You can find some -15, maybe some -18, 19 degree readings as you make your way over into that area as well. Not much going on with the radar. Some very light snow here across central portions of Alberta and Saskatchewan. That's really going to be the theme over the next few days. We'll take a look at the satellite picture here, the infrared satellite. We've got couple things going on. One, very strong jet stream flow, and the active storm track really remains right through this corridor. A lot of moisture here being deposited in parts of California, and then as these storm systems run across the Rockies and eject across the southern plains, they lift into the Midwest and bring a lot of precipitation to this region right here. As we look at the Canadian Prairie, we've got kind of another much weaker upper level low kind of situated here across the northern tier of the Prairie provinces up toward the Hudson Bay. And we get these little disturbances that kind of come around the backside of that, bringing us those shots of cold air and very light doses of snow flurries. And so here you see that with the jet stream winds. Monday morning, again, very strong winds continue across this corridor. Meanwhile, as I animate this, you can kind of just see these weaker disturbances kind of swinging through the prairie. Here's that low right there. I'll let this play one more time. You see the circulation right here. It really gets obvious there as we get toward the later part of the week. And then it moves out, but not till we get towards days 8, 9, and 10. So really no change to the overall pattern as we head through the next 7 days or so. It's going to be very active across this corridor. And then here we'll see very light doses of snow, shots of colder air, until maybe we get toward the other side of next weekend into the first days of April. So I'll take the drawings off. We'll go day by day with this one to just kind of, show you what's going on. So here's our Monday. Again, very light snow, kind of just sitting there across central portions of Alberta and Saskatchewan, north of much of the prairie. We'll take this into Tuesday night and Wednesday as a storm lifts out of the Dakotas into Minnesota right here. Maybe some light snow across far southern portions of southeastern Saskatchewan and then southern portions of Manitoba as we get into the early Wednesday morning hours. Quiet then Wednesday night into Thursday. And then we continue to see these little disturbances really as we get into the weekend. That's when I showed you it was most obvious. Those chances for flurries. This is your Friday and Saturday. I'm rocking back and forth on all the way out to March 25th and 26th, 27th. This would be Tuesday and Wednesday early next week. And then this is when potentially, maybe the chance for something a little more organized as a system rides over the top of that ridge and we kind of mix the pattern up a little bit. But check out the date here, March 30th. So through your next 10 days, not much going on as far as organized precipitation. The next 10 days verbatim from the European operational model. The exact totals here will vary somewhat, but you can see the pattern. A lot of moisture here across the west coast of the U.S. with strong flow coming in here. Those storm systems eject across the Rockies and then lift across the southern and eastern U.S. Heavy precipitation across the Midwest, the southern U.S. But as we look at the prairie here, pretty darn quiet. We get the chances for some light precipitation. But as you look at your color bar here, we're talking about anywhere from a tenth to maybe a few tenths of an inch of moisture over the next 10 days. And as we talk about what that looks like in snowfall, European on the left, GFS on the right, March 20th through the 30th. You see off to the north where we get that stagnant area of that weaker upper level low. The chance for anywhere from 2 to 6 inches of snow, maybe locally higher across central portions of the prairie provinces here, north central, north of Highway 16. But as we just kind of focus in on the prairie proper right here, again, we're talking about opportunities for some flurries, but generally a coating or less. Maybe some of the foothill areas here across far western and southern Alberta. Getting a little terrain help here, getting a couple inches of snow. But by and large, the prairie, another quiet week, light inconsequential snow flurries. The probability of picking up half an inch or more of total moisture over the next week. Again, here's your storm track right there. We miss out on it across the prairie. We'll see those chances for some flurries, but not looking at anything significant in terms of moisture over the next 7 to 10 days. As we look even deeper, this is the latest data from the European long-range model for the month of April. We see colder temperatures likely overall across the prairie, at least for the first half of April. And then understand this is a 30-day average. It doesn't mean every day will be cold. There will be some warmer periods within that, but more cold days than warm as we go through the month of April. And then trying to, kind of sort out what the storm track might look like. We're seeing a lot of indications that we'll continue to see maybe California start to slow down, but a storm track that really favors the eastern half of the U.S. And then perhaps, similar to what we saw last year, that late rally, late April into May, started to see some of those storm systems take a more northerly track, and that ended up getting parts of southeastern Saskatchewan and southern Manitoba, that late rally, some heavy snow, some heavy rain, and some flooding issues as we came into the spring. As we try and look at where we're headed here for the next month and a half, if anyone's going to pick up a lot of moisture here in a hurry towards the last weeks of winter, the first weeks of spring, I think it's going to, again, be parts of southeastern Saskatchewan, southern Manitoba. I think a little bit closer to a normal April across the rest of the prairie here. That does mean maybe we see a storm system that we can't visualize here, a month out, makes its way in, but by and large, not looking at a significantly wet or a significantly dry month of April, and otherwise finish to the winter and beginning to the spring across the prairie. One last thing to kind of look at, well, a couple things, but I wanted to show you the current snow water equivalent. So this means looking at snow on the ground right now, if we melt it down, how much liquid moisture is in there. As you look at the southern tier of the prairie here, we've got a good snowpack, anywhere from a couple inches to maybe 4 inches of moisture locked in that. Kind of along Highway 1, between 1 and 16, just speaking very generally, much lighter snowpack here being imaged across the region here, meaning anywhere from a trace, maybe some snow in the ditches, to a thin layer, maybe a light coating of snow on the ground. I'd be curious if you want to send me a ground truth report kind of from this corridor here of south central Alberta, south central Saskatchewan, same thing into maybe central portions of Manitoba. Let me know what you've got on the ground. And then north of that, Edmonton, Calgary, up toward Grand Prairie, a little bit more in the way of snow on the ground. But also check out the difference here from this year and then a year ago today in 2022. Not a ton of difference as you make your way across eastern portions of the prairie. This is where we saw that late rally. This is not yet showing up on the March 20th, 2022 picture. We saw a lot of snow being focused on this area and then heavy rain as we came through late April into May. But difference over here, again, we're not talking about a lot on the ground across this region, but it's certainly been a little bit more of a favorable winter across those regions, and then especially across parts of the Dakotas and in northern Manitoba, and then Montana. Sorry, I'll get my next cup of coffee going here as I wrap this video up. But as we just kind of take a look here, a not crazy difference between 2022 and 2023, but certainly a little bit more on the favorable side. And then we continue to see at least some promise that we'll continue to keep things at least near average as we head through the month of April. Now, those temperatures, they're going to be on the colder side over the next 10 days, if not a little bit longer. We'll look at the European ensemble picture here for the next 2 weeks, a sliding 5-day window. Again, where you see the coldest temperatures, this is where we maybe have a little bit more a snowpack being modeled here. But again, keeping things on the colder side, though not brutally cold as we head through the end of March. Here's your next 10 days in Calgary. There you see the pattern, colder overall, still some warm days to be had. 6 degrees, 8 degrees on Wednesday and Thursday. Here's Edmonton. Same look here in Regina, Saskatoon. And then here is your next 10 days in Winnipeg. So again, another relatively dry week, a little bit on the colder side. As we look toward April, we'll kind of shake things up a little bit. We'll see what that does here as we get a week out. I'll talk to you again on March 27th. We'll take a deeper dive into what the month of April looks like across the Canadian Prairie.